These are the 10 fastest quick draw actors in Hollywood Western history, where comedians could outdraw cowboys, and the line between entertainment and genuine skill became surprisingly blurred. What we're measuring here goes deeper than camera tricks. When the first fast draw competition took place at Knott's Berry Farm in California back in 1954, actors started treating this as a competitive sport with real stakes. These weren't choreographed moves for the screen, and many of these performers could legitimately draw, cock, fire, and hit a target faster than you can blink. Real Old West gunfights look nothing like what you've seen in movies, and here's something that'll surprise you. Bob Munden, who held the Guinness World Record as the fastest man with a gun who ever lived, pointed out that history records exactly 0 incidents of 2 men deliberately facing off to draw guns at each other. The term fast draw in the actual Old West meant quick to anger or quick to pull your weapon, not the speed of the movement itself. Hollywood invented the face-to-face quick draw duel, and then some actors got so good at it that they turned the whole thing into a legitimate competitive sport. But before we get to number 1, you need to know about the man who made all of this possible. The godfather of fast draw, Arvo Ojala, and if you've ever seen the opening of Gunsmoke, you've watched him die. All 635 episodes of the show's first 9 seasons featured Ojala as the man Matt Dillon shot in that iconic opening sequence. But getting shot on television was the least impressive thing about him. Drawing, cocking, firing, and hitting a target in 1/6 of a second was what Ojala could do, which breaks down to 0.167 seconds. The average human eye blink takes about 0.3 seconds, which means he was drawing and firing twice in the time it takes you to blink once. His signature demonstration involved dropping a silver dollar from belt height, then drawing and hitting it before it fell 4 inches. A falling object drops roughly 4 inches in about 0.14 seconds, and the physics of that means he had to react, draw, aim, and fire in less time than that. February 21st, 1920 is when Ojala was born, and he went on to revolutionize the entire concept of fast draw in Hollywood. April 1958 brought him U.S. Patent 2832519 for his quick draw holster, a metal-lined design that allowed for smoother and faster draws. The technique of cocking the gun while it was still in the holster during the draw came from him, shaving precious fractions of a second off the time. What made him truly legendary was the training he provided to nearly every major Western star you can think of. James Arness, Hugh O'Brian, James Garner, Paul Newman, Robert Redford, Kevin Costner, Kevin Kline, and even Marilyn Monroe all learned from him, and in 1990, he was still working, training Michael J. Fox for Back to the Future Part 3. James Arness said about him in 1959 that there's no one faster with a gun. Ojala himself took a more humble view of it when he said that gunfighters are made and not born, and it's just as true on the movie sets today as it was in the days of the early West. 2 weeks is all he claimed he needed to teach the necessary skills to anyone. July 1st, 2005 is when Arvo Ojala died, but his legacy lived on through every actor he trained and every quick draw competition that followed. Now let's get to those rankings. Number 10, James Garner. Playing Brett Maverick in the TV series Maverick from 1957 to 1962 is what made James Garner's name, and in 1959, Arvo Ojala ranked Garner among his best students alongside James Arness and Wade Preston. Garner brought a different energy to Westerns, which is what made him interesting more than pure speed. His character Maverick was a gambler and a charmer instead of your typical quick-draw gunslinger. But behind the scenes, Garner trained seriously with Ojala and developed legitimate fast draw skills. Multiple Western films carried those skills forward, including Support Your Local Sheriff in 1969. Western heroes shifted with Garner at the forefront, moving away from raw speed and intimidation and toward wit and style. When he needed to draw, though, he could do it properly. Number 9, James Arness. 20 years, from 1955 to 1975, James Arness was Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke, 635 episodes. Television history's longest-running Western series, and Arness was the face of it. 6'7" made Arness an imposing figure, and John Wayne personally recommended him for the role of Matt Dillon, which isn't hard to understand. Beyond his physical presence, though, Arness took the technical aspects of the roles seriously. Training from Arvo Ojala put Arness among his instructor's best students in 1959. And for 20 years, he drew that gun on screen week after week, maintaining consistency and technique. When your instructor is the man getting shot in your show's opening credits, and that instructor says you're one of his best students, that carries weight. More screen time drawing a gun than almost any other actor in television history came with the longevity of Gunsmoke. Speed alone doesn't tell the story. Consistency and professionalism over 2 decades does. If this video brought you value, hit that subscribe button and join the community for more powerful, untold histories. Number 8. Peter Breck. The realm of truly remarkable speed starts here. Peter Breck, who played Nick Barkley on The Big Valley from 1965 to 1969, clocked a draw time of 0.16 seconds, which is 16/100ths of a second. Wildest Westerns magazine documented that Breck held the fastest draw in television history. 98 of the show's 112 episodes featured him, and he also played roles in Black Saddle from 1959 to 1960 and portrayed Doc Holliday on Maverick. Understanding how fast 0.16 seconds is requires context, and here's that context. Less than half the time it takes to snap your fingers. From a resting position to gun drawn, cocked, and aimed in 16/100ths of a second. February 6, 2012 is when Peter Breck died at the age of 82. But his speed record from the Big Valley era remains a point of discussion among Western television enthusiasts. Number 7. Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy's story almost defies belief. The most decorated U.S. combat soldier of World War II came to Hollywood and brought a different kind of intensity to Westerns. The intensity of someone who had actually been in life-and-death situations. Over 40 Western films featured Murphy, and multiple Hollywood gun instructors said he was the fastest draw they ever saw. What separated Murphy from almost everyone else on this list, though, was his ability to do it with live ammunition. Hugh O'Brian, who played Wyatt Earp on television, once wagered between $1,000 and $5,000 that he could beat any Hollywood actor in a fast draw competition. And that's when the famous story begins. Murphy accepted the challenge, but raised the ante to $2,500 and demanded they use live ammunition, which made O'Brian decline. Confidence in his speed and accuracy ran so deep that Murphy was willing to risk his life on it. And that's not Hollywood bravado, but combat veteran confidence. Close friendship with Arvo Ojala meant Murphy served as godfather to Ojala's children, and the two men clearly respected each other's abilities with firearms. May 28, 1971 brought tragedy when Audie Murphy died in a plane crash. Number 6. Hugh O'Brian. The life and legend of Wyatt Earp from 1955 to 1961 starred Hugh O'Brian in the title role. A draw time of 0.25 seconds, 1/4 of a second, was what he claimed, and according to True West magazine and multiple other sources, he backed up that claim. Confidence in his abilities ran so high that he made the wager we just discussed, $1,000 to $5,000, that he could beat any Hollywood actor. Public challenges like that don't get made unless you're absolutely certain of your skills, and that tells you something about his reputation. When Audie Murphy demanded live ammunition, though, O'Brian backed down, which isn't necessarily criticism. A significant difference exists between competitive fast draw with blanks or in controlled conditions, and actually shooting live rounds at targets with another person doing the same thing mere feet away. Training from Arvo Ojala meant O'Brian took his role as Wyatt Earp seriously, and beyond his acting career, he founded the Hugh O'Brian Youth Leadership Organization, known as HOBY, which continues to operate today. Hollywood fame combined with genuine technical skill, and he used both to make a broader impact. Number 5. Clint Eastwood. Things get really interesting here. The New Yorker published an article in 1992 featuring Bob Munden, the Guinness World Record holder for fastest draw, in which Munden ranked Clint Eastwood as the 3rd fastest draw in Hollywood. The National Vegas Fast Draw event saw Eastwood participate, competing publicly on the clock, and Jim Martin, a gun coach at MGM, gave him pointers before his exhibition. Like most serious Western actors of his era, Eastwood trained with Arvo Ojala and other top gun coaches. Longevity defines what's remarkable about Eastwood's Western career. From The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly to Unforgiven, decades later, he maintained his skills and his credibility. And Eastwood didn't just play Western characters, but studied the technical craft of the quick draw and competed in actual fast draw events. Bob Munden, who knew speed better than almost anyone, ranking you third in Hollywood is a serious endorsement. 18 world records in fast draw competition belonged to Munden, and he knew the difference between Hollywood theatrics and genuine technical ability. Number 4. Glenn Ford. Nearly 50 years made up Glenn Ford's career, and from 1940 to 1960, he was a top box office draw. Born on May 1, 1916, in Saint Christine d'Auvergne, Quebec, Canada, Ford became known in Hollywood circles as the fastest gun in Hollywood. The Virginia pilot documented his draw time at 0.4 seconds, with some sources claiming he could draw in under 0.4 seconds, which is 4/10 of a second from rest to drawn, cocked, and aimed. Multiple classic westerns starred Ford, and the titles tell the story by themselves. The Fastest Gun Alive in 1956, 310 to Yuma in 1957, Jubal in 1956, The Sheepman and Cowboy both in 1958. A Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in 1961 for Pocket Full of Miracles came his way. Ford once said, "The Western is a man's world, and I love it," and that love translated into technical dedication. When you're cast in a film literally called The Fastest Gun Alive, you can't fake the speed, and Ford could deliver. August 2006 is when he died, but his reputation as one of Hollywood's fastest draws remained intact. Number 3. Sammy Davis Jr. Speeds that seem almost superhuman start showing up now. Sammy Davis Jr., the legendary entertainer, could draw and fire in 0.40 to 0.45 seconds, which is 4 to 4.5 of a second. The New Yorker article from August 10, 1992, had Bob Munden ranking Sammy Davis Jr. as the second fastest draw in Hollywood. But there's more to the story. Johnny Cash recalled that Davis could draw and fire a Colt single-action Army revolver in less than a quarter of a second. That discrepancy deserves attention. Munden said 0.40 to 0.45 seconds, while Cash claimed under 0.225 seconds. And the difference might come down to timing methods, or what exactly was being measured, whether draw to shot, or draw to aimed, or draw to target hit. Regardless of which measurement you use, though, Davis was exceptionally fast. Western TV shows including The Rifleman, Zane Grey Theater, Lawman, and Wild Wild West featured his appearances, and in 1974, the Western film Gone with the West gave him a role. Gun spinning expertise and fast draw demonstrations throughout his career made Davis stand out. Appearing together on The Mike Douglas Show in 1980 led to Davis giving Bob Munden a customized Colt 45 as a gift. And when the fastest man with a gun who ever lived ranks you second in Hollywood and you're giving him custom pistols, you've clearly earned your place in the hierarchy. Training with Arvo Ojala meant Sammy Davis Jr. represented something fascinating, which is that you didn't have to be a Western specialist to master the quick draw. Primarily known as a singer, dancer, and member of the Rat Pack, Davis dedicated himself to this particular skill and reached the top level. Number 2, Jerry Lewis. The story gets absolutely wild here. Jerry Lewis, yes, the comedian, the man known for slapstick comedy and manic energy. According to Bob Munden, speaking to The New Yorker in 1992, Jerry Lewis had the fastest draw in Hollywood. Not second fastest, not third, the fastest. Let that sink in for a moment. Jerry Lewis, comedian and actor, was faster than Clint Eastwood, faster than Glenn Ford, faster than Hugh O'Brian, faster than every Western star you can think of. How did this happen? Lewis was a serious gun enthusiast who participated in California leather slapping competitions during the 1950s and 1960s, and in 1959, gun coach Rod Redwing stated that Lewis was the quickest learner of fast draw techniques he had ever seen. Training with Arvo Ojala meant Lewis didn't just learn the basics, but mastered them. An extensive gun collection that was eventually auctioned by Christie's showed this wasn't a hobby or a publicity stunt. And Jerry Lewis dedicated himself to fast draw competition the same way he dedicated himself to comedy and filmmaking. The lesson here is humbling. Natural talent and dedication matter more than image or typecasting. And while movie stars were playing cowboys on screen, A comedian was beating them all in the one skill that supposedly defined the Western hero. The research doesn't provide an exact rhyme for Jerry Lewis, unfortunately. But when Bob Munden, the authority on fast draw, names you the fastest in Hollywood, that's the ultimate validation. Number 1. Bob Munden, the ultimate authority. Technically, Bob Munden wasn't a Hollywood actor in the traditional sense, which is why some might argue he shouldn't be on this list. But he appeared on television, he performed exhibitions, and he trained actors. And more importantly, he held the Guinness World Record as the fastest man with a gun who ever lived, with an influence on Hollywood westerns that was undeniable. 0.0175 seconds was Bob Munden's claimed draw time, which is 1.75 one-hundredths of a second, and he held 18 world records in fast draw competition. February 8, 1942, is when Munden was born, and he dedicated his life to fast draw. In 2010, on the show Stanley's Superhumans, it was demonstrated that his hand withstood 10 Gs of force during his draw. And for reference, astronauts experience about 3 Gs during a rocket launch, which meant Munden's hand was experiencing more than triple that. When he drew and fired, he would often say, "I'm fast beyond words, fast beyond all explanation," and he was right. The human brain processes visual information at a certain speed, and Munden could draw faster than most people could register the movement. Some controversy needs addressing here. Munden's records have been disputed due to lack of documentation, and Guinness stopped listing his records in later editions, while his claim of 3,500 trophies is uncorroborated. But even his critics generally acknowledge he was extraordinarily fast, and the dispute is over exactly how fast and whether specific records were properly documented. December 10, 2012 is when he died, leaving behind a legacy that blurred the line between sport, performance, and legend. The bigger picture. Certain patterns emerge when you look at this list. Speed alone didn't make you a great Western actor, which James Arness proved since he wasn't the fastest on this list, but Gunsmoke ran for 20 years. Hugh O'Brian wasn't faster than Sammy Davis Jr., but O'Brian is the one remembered for playing Wyatt Earp. The 1950s and 1960s were the golden age of fast draw, both in Hollywood and as a competitive sport. Most of the actors on this list were training and competing during this specific period. And the first fast draw competition was held at Knott's Berry Farm in 1954, which meant within a decade, the sport had exploded in popularity. Arvo Ojala's influence cannot be overstated since he trained the majority of the actors on this list. His quick draw holster patent and his teaching methods standardized what fast draw meant in Hollywood, and before Ojala it was inconsistent. But after Ojala, there was a technique, a method, a way to measure and improve. Perhaps most fascinating is this. The fastest draws weren't always the biggest Western stars. Jerry Lewis and Sammy Davis Jr., at the top of the speed rankings, challenges everything we think we know about Hollywood's specialization and suggests that dedication and technical practice matter more than image or genre. The measurements we've discussed, 0.16 seconds, 0.25 seconds, 0.4 seconds, these were based on different competition rules and timing equipment, which makes direct comparisons sometimes difficult. Some competitions measured draw-to-shot time, while others measured draw-to-target hit time, and some allowed precocking while others didn't. Plus, the technology for electronic timing evolved over the decades. What's not in dispute, though, is this. These actors and performers developed a legitimate skill. They didn't just pretend to be fast for the camera, but competed, trained, and dedicated themselves to a craft that Hollywood invented, but that became real in its own right. Something unique in entertainment history is what these 10 individuals represent, which is the moment when Hollywood fiction became athletic reality. The face-to-face quick-draw duel never happened in the Old West, but Hollywood made it iconic, and then actors took that fictional concept and turned it into a measurable, competitive skill. From James Garner's smooth style to Bob Munden's record-breaking speed, from Audie Murphy's willingness to use live ammunition to Jerry Lewis, proving that a comedian could outdraw the Cowboys, these performers created a legacy that went beyond the screen. The Western genre may have faded from its peak popularity, but the technical skill remains. Holsters Arvo Ojala designed are still used in fast draw competitions today. And organizations like the World Fast Draw Association and the Cowboy Fast Draw Association continue the tradition. When actors need gun training for Western films, they're learning techniques that trace directly back to the people on this list. The fastest quick draw actors in Hollywood weren't just entertaining us in the end, they were preserving and evolving a skill that existed nowhere else. They took a fictional concept, made it real, made it measurable, and made it extraordinary. And yes, the comedian was the fastest of them all.